but I've played just about every other Assassin's Creed game.
But it was the Geico ad that was in the middle of the game that really pissed you off. Suddenly, the Geico lizard was started to walk across your screen.
He gives you the quest to go across the desert to save 15% or more on your car insurance.
I will stop playing video games that day.
Welcome to the premiere episode of the Normal People Gaming Podcast, or NPG for short. My name is Michael.
And I'm Duane.
How's it going, Duane?
Very good. I'm reviewing my life, Michael.
Yeah.
You know, every day I'm trying to be better, I swear.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. Better at what? Better at Elden Ring?
Absolutely. You know, hey, Elden Ring's a tough game, to be fair.
It is.
Well, when you die like 100 times in the first couple hours, you know, it's a tough game.
Yeah, for real.
Brings you back to, you know, the lava levels in Mario for us olds, you know, just constantly falling in lava and getting hit by.
Yeah.
What are those things that swing around? That's like a
the
swing
ball and chains, or
is that what they
something
are?
Like that.
I never knew they were ball and chains.
You know,
like in the original Mario.
You and I did a show, sort of podcast-like, for Legion Gaming, and we had talked about how water levels in old games were some of the hardest levels for some reason. Like Earthworm Jim had this little ship that you could control underwater, and it was very difficult. The glass,
yes, the glass bubble that would like crack. Every little thing that you touched, you'd get a new crack.
Yeah. Very, very frustrating. I feel like that was always when I stopped playing the game, I would get to the water level for whatever reason.
And we can't forget about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on NES.
Yes.
I mean, the water level on that is notoriously like evil and hated for many people in my generation. But the weird thing, and we discussed this in that podcast, was that the trend has carried on. Like water levels still are either difficult, or take Elden Ring, you literally can fall into the abyss and die almost instantly, right? If you go too far in the water.
Yeah, that is actually comical, the way that it's instant. You fall off the ledge.
It's such an afterthought. It's like, this is the end of the world, guys. We need to come up with something quick to discourage the player, and you're dead. And even Fallout, like I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4 because of the TV show, and I've always loved that game. Water kills you very quickly, and Starfield, water kills you super quick in Starfield. So
if you're on the wrong planet in Starfield, the water is real bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should actually just real quick talk about why we started this podcast, because a lot of people coming to this podcast, you know us from Starfield with Normal People.
Yes, indeed. And we love that game. We wanted to make a specific podcast about Starfield, and we're going to continue to do so. But there's also so much great video game content out there that we want to talk about. And we didn't want to muddy the waters with the Starfield podcast, talking about Elden Ring and Mario Brothers too much.
Totally.
So here we are.
Here we are. And that's going to continue. That podcast is still going to keep going.
Yeah, we'll continue with that. But we want to welcome anyone that is familiar with our other podcast. If you're not, definitely check out Starfield with Normal People. If you're into that game, or even if you're not, go check it out.
Yeah, if you're not, maybe we'll convince you.
Yep. Maybe it'll keep you from review bombing Starfield.
Yeah.
Which happened, right? And I wanted to actually, should we talk about what we're playing before we get into that first topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you playing?
Well, I did mention Fallout 4. I have piled on dozens of hours in the last couple weeks, which is a lot for me, with a person with a family and jobs and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Any gaming time I get is pretty precious. Mm-hmm. So that speaks well to the new update.
Yeah, I've been playing it as well because of the update that hit, and sort of like a next gen update for, current gen.
Right.
But it does need some fixes. There was some missing assets and stuff, and apparently that we're going to get a fix for that next week. Yeah. So I personally haven't had any problem.
Look, it's a Bethesda game. I mean, they're huge by nature, and anyone who's worked in the industry or is familiar with playing big video games, there are bugs. There's always going to be bugs. Hopefully there's not too many game-breaking bugs. That's the important thing, right?
Yeah, that's the important thing. I did see some images of like some missing assets and stuff. I didn't see any of that because I started a brand new character. So I haven't even seen like the new stuff. I know they have like some Enclave, like a new mission where you get some Enclave stuff. I'm really excited to see it, but because I started a new character, I looked at the map where that mission starts, and I was like, okay. I started going there.
Is it south?
Got this, I think it's like north.
Okay, by Far Harbor, right?
Yeah, I know south is like crazy. Yeah, over by Far Harbor. And that area does get a little tricky. It's not as bad as the Glowing Sea, but I got my butt handed to me by a Yao Guai pretty quickly, so I'm just not ready.
What are you playing?
So I'm playing a few things on Xbox, trying out a few games, but I wanted to talk about Suika Game. So Suika Game, have you even heard of this? I didn't prep you on this at all.
I believe I used that in my iced tea though. So.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, Suika. Yeah, a little sugar substitute. So Suika means watermelon in Japan, and there's this Japanese game that is very simple by design. You drop little fruits, and it goes from smallest to biggest. From what I know, it first hit on the Nintendo Switch. It looked interesting. It's like $3, right? Like, it's such a simple game. You drop fruit.
Are you playing this on mobile, by the way, or where are you playing this?
So yes, so I almost got it for Switch, but then we have a Switch, but I don't play very much. I mostly play on Xbox. I have the PlayStation 5 as well for exclusives. Then it came to mobile, which was a good idea for them because there were so many copycat games coming out on mobile that it's actually tough to find.
Let's actually put our real game on mobile and let people play that instead of all these knockoffs.
Literally, the game is just from smallest to biggest. You drop cherries are the smallest. You drop 2 cherries, it becomes a strawberry. And the 2 strawberries become a grape. And it's like random what it's going to give you next. And so it's almost like Tetris where you drop it, but then it's physics-based. So they'll drop and like things can move and shift. So anyway, the goal is to get a high score, but the goal basically is to get Suika, which is a watermelon, which is the biggest thing. The bigger the fruits get, it's a tighter space and it's tough to get things in.
Sure.
It's a simple game, but it is very addicting because you'll reach the top, okay, game over. I'm like, let me try again. Drop.
I mean, I haven't played it, but I imagine, fruit-based, kind of like Candy Crush, a big part of these games is endorphin release through sound effects and like kind of on-screen effects that just bring you joy. So like I'm imagining you get that next bigger fruit and you get some sort of little endorphin reward of like a sound effect or like a...
Yeah. You get a little like pop. It's like bloop, plop, plop, plop. Like, and when you get like a combo, you'll drop a fruit and it becomes a different fruit that becomes a different, it's like plop, plop, plop. Like when you get one of those, like that's where you get the endorphins. Yeah.
Right. Tetris really paved the way for games like this. And obviously Candy Crush, you look at top selling games and it's not Helldivers. I mean, Helldivers is a top selling game, but Tetris or
but
like Candy Crush, they have
Candy Crush
millions
so
and
much
millions
money.
of units. Yeah.
It's insane. Well, and they have you buy more lives and you buy the power-ups to help get you through the tough puzzles and oh my God,
Insidious.
They make so much money. Yeah, it's evil.
I just wanted to throw out, I tried Lethal Company.
Yeah.
It's not really my bag. I think it'd be fun if you have a group of friends or online people that you play with often, I guess, like online friends.
Yeah.
It'd be super fun because in the game, you can actually watch what happens to the other players, like via monitors in the game. So it's actually quite funny because you can watch them do stupid things or silly things. So I think that's rewarding, but it just wasn't really my interest.
Yeah.
It looked low res, it almost looked like a 2005 game, which is fine. I don't mind that in some cases, but in this kind of like first person perspective or something, it just, I don't know, wasn't my thing. I know people love the game, and I do think it is a fun game, but...
Yeah, it's really blown up. It's really popular. I mean, the art style definitely reminds me of Team Fortress 2 a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
When you said Team Fortress 2, I was like, yes, it looks like the way the players move around, it definitely had like a Team Fortress feel to it.
Yeah, I haven't played that. I've heard I heard that it does some really fun and interesting things with how like multiplayer works, and I think like it has like proximity chat, which proximity chat when it works really well can really enhance the experience of a game. I kind of got that from Sea of Thieves. I was one of the few crazy people that would play Sea of Thieves solo, and it was always like a stealth game.
And you can hear your enemies also. It's not just your teammates. Okay.
And that's what happened was I would go specifically to islands where I could easily like hide my ship behind the island. So if it was like tall enough and I had a small ship, I remember, man, there was this one time where it was just very relaxing. I'm just digging up treasure, like no big deal. And then I start to hear other voices.
Sitting on the beach.
Yeah, just on the beach.
Drinking your Mai Tai.
I hear those other voices.
I think there's a ship over here.
Yeah, I hear other voices and I'm like, oh no. Like it's a scary thing.
And it wasn't just the voices in your head this time. It was actually real people.
No, not this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was coming through the old Xbox chat. Yeah. Well, you had mentioned review bombing earlier. That is one of the stories that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's the de facto way to give feedback to the big evil corporation that makes your favorite game, right?
Yeah.
This will really get them where it hurts in the sales, right? Because this could prevent new customers from purchasing the game when they see that it's a 50%, it's a mixed reviews or mostly negative or whatever it is. That's a problem, I think.
It's really interesting because I believe in the voice of the people.
I mean, it's working too. That's the crazy thing.
It's working.
Let's talk about the PlayStation thing with Helldivers too. Like, you're required to get a PSN account. The player base went nuts and they're like, no. Yeah. I mean, for good reason.
For good reason.
It was kind of a ridiculous proposition.
It was not only ridiculous, the Helldivers developer admitted that he knew about that requirement, but sort of like pushed it down. Like he kind of like disabled it in the game somehow. And PlayStation was like, hey, you can't do that. But then here's the problem is why is PlayStation selling this game in countries where they're not allowed or don't have access to a PlayStation Network account? So there's so much wrong going on here that I don't know who is fully to blame.
It reminds me of the Apple ad that just got released for the iPad where, they're crushing, literally crushing art.
Yeah.
And
I liked that ad. I don't know. I saw a lot of people had a problem with it. I was like, I don't know. You've never seen a movie where they destroy a car?
Yeah. The whole thing is kind of brilliant because I would have never given two patooties about a new iPad. It's not really on my radar, even though we have them here in the house. Like I really couldn't, I could care less about that. But the fact that it got so much press, both negative and positive, mostly negative, had to been like a home run for their marketing team because everybody knows about it now. But getting back to the review bombs, that's kind of similar. I mean, it makes a headline, and you had talked about, was it HiFi Rush?
HiFi Rush it's like an opposite situation where people are reverse review bombing. So basically they're going and giving it glowing reviews in like record numbers, which first off, the game does already deserve the good reviews. Like it's a great game. And it was like a surprise drop when it happened. For anyone that doesn't, isn't in the loop, the reason gamers are giving it, massive good reviews is because Microsoft just closed that studio. So HiFi Rush came out, was a hit, sort of a hit.
It was like the movie that got released in the theater that didn't do so well and then killed it on rental.
Right.
Or streaming in this case.
Yeah. there's movies and there's games that are basically like they become cult classics. Well, movies become cult classics, right? But that doesn't mean that they made money and they weren't successful. And so HiFi Rush came out and was a critical success, but they just released it on PlayStation and apparently doesn't seem like it did too well financially.
Did we hear about what happened with the studio? Like, was it a mess when did they fire everybody? Was it a surprise to the studio? Did big bad Microsoft come in and?
I mean, in reality, yeah, they shut down the studio and that's it.
So the player base heard about this and was like, no, we like the devs, we like the studio.
Yeah.
And your penance is we shall give your game massive positive reviews.
we shall and it's here's what's crazy. People might be like, hey, we're going to give this good reviews, but now does that mean that it will now sell more and then Microsoft will make more money and the studio's still closed? So like there's not a big win that can happen right now because the studio is already closed.
I kind of get it because like we're trying to reward that studio in the only way that we possibly can, which is to give their game high marks. And it's a deserving game, like you said, so it's easy to do.
And hopefully those developers will then land at other places or start a new company.
Sure they will.
And
Well, let me explain something. Microsoft is basically like AI from the Matrix, okay? It doesn't live to serve humanity necessarily. It lives to turn a profit for shareholders.
To grow and
Which is kind of humanity, but I mean, like ultimately the bottom, I guess, if you're a gamer, buy Microsoft stock. How about that? Then you win.
Right.
That is the only way that you're going to win.
From what I have heard, even though HiFi Rush was a critical success, I think their last, like Tango Gameworks, their last 4 games weren't really profitable.
It took them a while to get that hit. And even the hit wasn't a true hit. It was like a...
Most people played it off of Game Pass. And to be honest, like I will try a lot of games on Game Pass. So when this like surprise dropped, of course I was trying it. I actually didn't beat the game.
It's a music timing game,
tough,
wasn't
man.
it?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Okay,
and very creative. Yeah. Sort of like it was a fighting game. It was a brawler, but you would time your hits to the music. Very cool idea. Yeah. Very cool idea. And I do need to go back to it and finish it. There's just so many games, so it's hard for me to keep my attention on one game.
Sure. That does sound like a game that you could just, pick up on a Friday night and, relax a little bit, play that game.
So I guess my final thoughts on this is that on one hand, Microsoft sees the game didn't make a profit and that their last 4 games didn't make a profit, so they shut the studio. And so part of me says, okay, I can't fault them for that. But the other part of me is getting really frustrated with game companies and movie companies and stuff like that, where every single thing has to make a massive profit. And that's a problem because that's where you're going to get like tons and tons of live service games that are like just hoping to keep you hooked nonstop, which you can't be completely hooked to 20 different games. My point is, you have to have the tent pole games that make you money, and then you've got to have the smaller games that are interesting to get you noticed and win the awards. Which is funny because then Microsoft said that. They said it after they had an all hands meeting, and Microsoft was like, we need more like smaller games that are interesting and win awards, and everyone was like, you mean like HiFi Rush? Like, come on.
Developers. You still haven't watched that yet, have you, Steve Ballmer? Come on.
Oh,
that was a meme from 20 years ago.
I've seen a lot of Steve Ballmer memes, so I probably did see it.
They were preaching that 20 years ago. Steve Ballmer was standing at an all-hands meeting, running around saying developers. Same kind of deal. We want indie game concepts. It's kind of like you mentioned movies and film. In film, these big studios would try to put out these tentpole movies, and let's say Disney, for example, their last like 4 major films have been massive box office bombs.
Yeah.
Let's take animation as a subset of that. Perhaps they need a little indie studio to kind of infuse fresh ideas, which is what indie games and indie studios are so good at, is reinventing genre and reinvigorating the lifeblood of art.
Yeah, you can take more risks.
They work hand in hand with the evil corporation crushing the small studio at the end. So ultimately, they still get crushed. But
I'm a big Microsoft Xbox fan, and it's a frustrating life to live because they really have like talked a big game over the last several years. Like I've been giving them a pass. They've been buying up all these studios, and I'm like, yes, okay, great. And then these studios have been putting out these smaller games like Pentiment and Tango, making HiFi Rush, which is like a medium-sized game, which is great. But like, it feels like they've had all these like smaller games and they don't have the big AAA release. And the only reason they had Starfield was because Bethesda was already like 80% done with it, when they bought Bethesda.
That was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
They were 80% done 6 years ago.
But my point is like they've had all these like smaller games, but they haven't had the big tentpole games. What's frustrating is it feels like they're like, we're done with these smaller games. We need the big tentpole. No, stop. You need the smaller games and the big tentpole game. What Xbox is doing right now feels very reactionary. Calm down. Like you guys have $1 trillion.
Yeah, they might be sandbagging for the next gen console, like their big tentpole.
Yeah.
And you have to think that money again is not in the hardware. It's not in an Xbox. They're not going to make any margin or small margin on that sales. They're going to make it on Game Pass and subscriptions monthly coming in. So what they need to do is they need to fill that queue with games.
Yeah.
Mostly good, hopefully. So their focus is not going to be on a big tentpole game. It's going to be on, let's get 5 more good games and then 1 great game that we can put on Game Pass and 20 crappy games. And that way, when people feel like they're paying $30, they feel like they're getting something for it.
Well, their next big game is actually coming out this month, I believe, and it's Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
Which I am excited about because it looks incredible, but from what I hear, it's going to be a short game. Anyone who knows me or has heard me on our other podcast knows that I don't say that in a bad way. I like a short game. I like to have an experience and then done because I need to move on to other games. When Xbox is only putting out a new game every so often, for a game to come out that takes you 4 or 5 hours to finish, then gamers are going to be sitting there going, okay, now what?
That's probably why you went out and bought a Switch and a PlayStation 5.
Right, yeah, because you have to have the other games.
Because you're like, if all these big, companies put out 1 great game every quarter, then I need all the different systems to play them.
That actually leads me to, our next news story, which is that the Nintendo president said that game development will become even longer, more complex, and more sophisticated. Which we know that. We've been seeing that happen since, ever since games went 3D.
20 years ago, I started to notice plugins, which became, I don't know if I'm saying that in the right way, but like components of video games that you could purchase, like ragdoll physics. You could buy that component for your game that you're developing and kind of plug it in depending on what platform you're using.
Yeah, you didn't have to develop it yourself. Yeah, you could just get the Havoc.
Right, the Havoc engine or whatever. So I feel like going forward, developers are going to be piecing together all these different systems. And that's why, people complain about Creation Engine. What's Bethesda going to do? I mean, start coding from scratch when they already have this robust engine that does a million different things and it mostly does them well, and they can build on it?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
I see people talking about the limitations of the Creation Engine, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, but the Creation Engine is built for a very specific kind of game, and that is a Bethesda game. There are things that it doesn't do as well, but what it does do is, man, I was looking recently and like there's no one that does physics the way this, Starfield does. Like even haters on the game kind of, they'll get a kick out of like the 1,000 potatoes, falling realistically, or then you put like all these objects in 0G, like they have like 0G physics that are incredibly well done.
Right.
And then they have their own lighting system, which it almost looks like a blend between SSR, which is screen space reflection, and then like it almost looks, what's the word?
Oh, ray tracing?
Ray tracing, yeah. Their lighting engine, like it almost looks sort of like ray traced, the way that it works. It's just very impressive. Yeah, like you said, they're not gonna just give up on this engine that they've been developing for years. They're gonna continue to improve on it. But yeah, I miss the days where, sure, we got a new GTA every year. Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, around like 2001, I want to say, something like that. Then, wow, we got like Vice City the year after that. And then we got San Andreas the year after that. And they just had that engine, and then they pumped out another game. And now we get a new Grand Theft Auto like every decade, if we're lucky.
Right. It's stretched out, and the stakes are insanely high. I mean, all that development time and cost to make a game, it's got to sell millions of units to be able to break even. It's like these big budget movies now. When Titanic was released, it was like, first time they spent $100 million. It was inconceivable. How could they spend $100 million on a single movie? Or was it $200 million for that one? I mean, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that first $100 million movie, it's routine for, what was it? The Indiana Jones movie was like $500 million budget.
Oh, jeez. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm like, where's this money going?
And it's like, for what? For what? It's not even like that was an amazing movie. It's not like it won tons of awards.
Yeah, when $250 million is advertising, the thing that, that's part of it too.
Well, we've seen all this talk of the death of the mid-budget film, which in the 90s and early 2000s, like there were tons of movies that were like made for $30 million. And it's not that it doesn't happen anymore, like it does happen. Because that's what's funny is anytime you start talking about this, someone will bring up a film that was $30 or $40 million budget.
Right. Steven Seagal is still making really terrible $10 million movies.
In Russia. I saw him hanging out with Putin.
Oh, yeah. They're like buddies.
But it's like the death of the mid-budget film. So like what happens now is you either make a comic book movie for $100 million plus, or you're making a horror film for $1 million or less. And like that's kind of how it feels right now. And the problem, and this is a video game podcast, so I won't belabor films, but the problem is that there are certain stories that can't be told for $1 million, but you also don't need $100 million. And those types of stories are not getting told as much. So it's like movies like Fight Club and, basically anything that came out.
Well, do you feel that that's the situation in video games? I mean, are there stories within gaming that aren't being told because there's not a $20 million game?
Yeah.
What does Grand Theft Auto 6 cost, right? Is that $500 million?
Yeah, I mean, Grand Theft Auto 6, I feel like it's going to be anywhere from $200 million to $300 million, all told. And the problem, to relate it back to video games, is with movies, it's stories not being told. With video games, it's experiences you're not going to have. Indie games can take more risks. I'm going to get an interesting game, but with like low poly graphics or like...
There's compromises.
A very simple art style. Yeah, there's compromises. So you're going to get an interesting game, but maybe it won't look amazing.
And maybe it'll be short.
I'm being very general.
Yeah, it might only be 5 hours.
And maybe it will be short. Yeah, and then by contrast, anything that has a big budget look is going to be playing it safe. It's going to be full of microtransactions because they've got to make that money back.
I just threw up a little in my mouth. Yeah. You said the M word.
I love Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't play the most recent one, Mirage, but I've played just about every other Assassin's Creed game.
But it was the Geico ad that was in the middle of the game that really pissed you off. Suddenly, the Geico lizard was the Geico gecko was started to walk across your screen like he was in the bottom corner.
He gives you the quest. He gives you the quest to go across the desert to save 15% or more on your car insurance.
I will stop playing video games that day.
The minute that happens. Yeah, well, the thing is, like, this is a single-player game. So, like, I'm thinking specifically back to Assassin's Creed Origin. One of the best Assassin's Creed games, although that is when they first started, like, becoming more of an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was you would go into the Ubisoft, shop. There was, like, tons of transactions, like skins and, like, look this way, look this way. Like, we're talking like 50 different skins for a single player game. It is a game where you will never see another player at all, but they're selling all this garbage.
And making lots of money because, I mean,
yeah,
you always want to customize your character. In my mind, that should be free to an extent. Yeah. Like if there's a cross promotion, like Fortnite was great with this by putting every known cross promotional skin in the game known to man. But yeah, you can pay for that. I get it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's a free game, so whatever.
But Assassin's Creed, that feels a little predatory or just a little icky.
Yeah, because you pay $60 for a game back then. Now you pay $70 for a game. And then there's all this like DLC. It's pretty crazy. It makes me really appreciate developers like Hello Games. They make No Man's Sky. They have never once put an ounce of DLC or any paid, money or whatever. Like, which is crazy because I would give them money. They've done so many free updates.
I know you haven't been to the center of the universe, but there's a McDonald's there. I'm sorry. I had to make another center of the universe joke. I will never stop making. That's my running gag with you.
I love this running gag because the game was updated like a million years ago.
No, I know. It was only like that first year. Yeah.
And there is a center of the universe. It was only, but yeah, I love that we're still.
It's like super bad when, it's like, you peed your pants. That was third grade. People don't forget.
People don't forget
about the center of the universe.
That was the goal and that there was nothing there.
There's a McDonald's there. Cross-promotional tie-in.
It's like one of those weird themed McDonald's that like you can only find in like one spot.
It's the Sedona where it's all green. Sedona, Arizona McDonald's. Do you know about that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of that one. I like when we road trip sometimes to California, there's a McDonald's that's like a train station.
Oh yeah, Baker.
McDonald's. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's where it is, yeah. But yeah, that's the thing is like you're either going to get big budget games that are trying to nickel and dime you, or you're going to get these like smaller experiences. Is this the death of the mid budget game?
Yeah, EA talked about putting ads in video games in their latest earnings call. The way that they worded it was it was like somebody from marketing typed some stuff into GPT chat and was like, "Give me a marketing speech." I mean, it's just kind of word vomit about partnerships and modalities and all kinds of crap.
Obviously, my knee-jerk reaction is I don't want ads in my game. Mm-hmm. However, there is a way to do these things, so it really depends on how it's done.
EA has been doing it for years. Like you look at their sports games and there have been banners in the background since the 90s, I believe. I mean, even before that, I want to say Atari had billboards in pole position, well, for Atari, but I thought there was another game that had an early ad that wasn't actually the maker of the game, because arcade games would have ads for their own company.
Yeah. Before games were connected to the internet, if you had a car racing game or whatever, it might be sponsored by a company. You might get a Michelin ad that was on just in the background on the side. And that's realistic. Like, that's how the world looks when you go to a racing, event. That type of thing did not bother me. And then, yeah, you're right. EA, like around the Burnout era,
Burnout was great.
Oh my God, I love the Burnout games. They started to do, they were connected to the internet, so they could actually change the billboards. And even then, I was like, fine, that's fine. I'm going to zoom past it. I don't have to, worry about it. Can I just say, though, even back then, I had a little worry about that. My worry was that this was going to shape development. So this is always my concern is, for instance, if your strategy is to, there's money in the game and you can buy more money, but don't worry, you don't have to buy more money. You just can if you want to. Then is that going to shape development? Are you going to make the game difficult to get money so that people buy money? So on the same logic, back then when they were like, we're going to put billboards in games. Well, I thought, what about medieval games? You can't put a Red Bull poster in a medieval game. So does that mean that studio will want to...
Or can you?
Yeah, or can you? I mean, you could. But my worry is, does that mean that studio will not want to make games about the medieval period? Are they not going to want to make games about pirates? Because if they do a modern game about skateboarding or motorcycling, well, we can put billboards. So that is always my concern. Like, whatever, find ways to make money as long as it doesn't affect the game. But so many times it is going to affect the game. So
right. There's a good way and there's a bad way to advertise as well. Obviously, blatant advertisement and gratuitous advertisement is uncomfortable and annoying and makes life less exciting to live.
I'm now remembering that when Alan Wake first came out, you had to get batteries for your flashlight, but they were like Energizer batteries or like it was branded. And I didn't even remember that until I was playing the remake of Alan Wake. And
in the quest, is it like go find the Energizer and it had like the little like trademark symbol next to it? Go find the Energizer batteries.
Man, I'm trying to remember if it showed that or if it just that they were Energizer batteries. But it was definitely like, it was kind of in your face branded. Like,
they should have like the evil, Energizer bunny would like come through the forest and Alan Wake would just like blow them away.
Well, that's what's funny is I was playing the remake and I noticed that in the remake that they must not have that agreement anymore because they are not branded. They are just batteries. But that's what's so funny is I remember playing the remake and going, wait a minute, something's different. And then I remembered that, in the original, it was straight up branded.
The marketing guy from Alan Wake calls up Energizer and say, hey, listen, your contract's up and we're going to re-release the game. We want to know if you want to send us another $1 million to have Energizer batteries in Alan Wake. No, we're not going to renew this time. Okay. Well, I'm going to call Duracell.
All right.
See what they say. Rayovac. I'm calling Rayovac.
I'm going to look it up because it would be so funny to me if it was Duracell and it didn't even, the advertising didn't even work because it was Energizer.
It's Nuka.
It worked. Advertising works.
It's RobTech.
It was
batteries.
Energizer.
Nice. And what kind of batteries?
Did you say Rayovac?
Yeah. What kind of battery do you buy when you go to the store?
I am battery agnostic. Now, I will say that mostly the batteries that we have in our house are Amazon rechargeables. However, did you know this? A little fun fact.
They're made by Energizer?
I don't know. The fun fact is that even though those are good to have for most things, the rechargeable batteries, so like game controllers and stuff, which I have like 30 game controllers, so we need that. Rechargeable batteries are terrible for wall clocks. And I didn't know this. Your wall clock, you have to have a non-rechargeable battery because what happens is with rechargeable batteries, for whatever reason, slowly your clock will just like it'll get behind. It will start slowing down. Whereas a non-rechargeable battery, the clock will stay correct until that day that it dies, the battery dies.
Actually, that clock is correct. Your twin, who is traveling close to the speed of light, their clock is actually slowing down. So that's what you didn't realize. You're in a space-time continuum right now, the twin paradox. So yeah,
that's what it is. Okay.
Actually, I don't believe I have a single wall clock, and I don't think I've heard the term wall clock since about 1985. So I gotta.
Hey, they're nice to have.
Is it the cat with the eyes that move back and forth in the tail? Because that's the only wall clock that comes to mind right now.
I wish. No, they're just they're just analog clocks that are up on the wall.
Weird. You mean like school? Like you have the big white clock like that was in your classroom?
Kind of like that, yeah.
And if it's super quiet in your house, do you hear the...
No, because my wife has misophonia, so it's like little sounds like will drive her crazy, like crickets and stuff. And so we've got all silent wall clocks. That's her plight in life, is that she has misophonia, but she also loves wall clocks. So like, yes, we've had wall clocks. Here's two.
It's a very specific wall clock shopping agenda for her.
Yeah, because we've had the clocks that are like tick, 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 like very subtle, but you hear it.
She won't be able to listen to this podcast now.
Yeah, and so she won't listen to it anyway. But what's funny too is we had a wall clock that didn't click, it didn't tick. The face plate got pushed in a little bit, and then that tiny little red second hand was like moving around, right? So as it does, we've all seen clocks. What happened was we noticed really, really quietly. We're talking like the quietest sound, but it would all of a sudden we would hear this like for just like 5 seconds. And then we're like,
where's that coming from?
After a while, we're like, what is that sound? What? And then a minute later,
it was almost like it was exactly every 45 seconds.
No,
to the T.
Yeah. It was the funniest thing when we realized that the face plate caved in a little bit, and that this second hand was...
You're walking around your apartment with a Ghostbusters device, like listening device with headphones on, trying to find the source of this scrape.
It was just this like scrape on the thing. It was funny. So yeah, batteries.
They should make that into a video game.
So batteries, there you go. Batteries and
battery
Alan
hour.
Wake. That's what we were talking about. Ads, yes.
Michael, on that note, let's wrap this up. You know, once we get to talking about wall clocks, I think it's time to go ahead and finish out the podcast. But we have some people to thank.
Yes.
So do you want to thank our Patreon members? We have a Patreon, by the way, which we will link in our YouTube.
I want to thank everyone that has been part of the Starfield with Normal People Patreon. That Patreon, we are going to just include everything that we do. So like, if you're already a fan of ours, you know, we had considered like, should we do another Patreon for this or for that? And we just thought, you know what? We want to do a bunch of different stuff, and we want you just to have it. We just want you to have everything.
Yep.
So I want to thank Mel Archivals, Malcolm Ashford, Brian Rousseau, Space Cadet 829, Rampage American X, Cherry Bomb RN, Griffin, Ben Price, Zigra Rocks. Yes, you people are awesome, and you already got it. You already got all this stuff. Everything new that we're doing.
Yeah.
All for you. Thank you for supporting us.
I agree with you. I also want to thank all the other subscribers to our Patreon as well. You know, you can join for as low as $1 a month. I mean, that is a ridiculous. You can't even buy a gumball for $1 these days.
No,
right?
Not anymore. That's true.
I mean, you go to Dave and Buster's and it costs you like 7 credits to, try to win a gumball or something. I mean,
which is like $27.
Yeah, it works out to $27. So, but yeah, we appreciate everybody on that. And we also want to thank everyone that listens on streaming and to those that are watching on YouTube. All links are provided in the show notes below.
And super special thanks for comments and feedback. If you've got a comment or a suggestion, a game that you think we should play, please, we love recommendations. I will try it out and we can talk about it. You can leave that comment on our YouTube page or come chat with us in our amazing Discord. The link is provided. I'm on there. We're on there all the time chatting with people. So please come talk to us.
And there's a Wall Clocks channel in there too, if you're into that.
There's going to be now.
Yeah.
Share your favorite wall clocks.
Oh, man.
If you like the show, consider please dropping a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. That would really help us out.
Thanks for hanging with Normal People Gaming, and make sure you subscribe because we will be back for more.
We'll see you then.